Tonight, the only Republican who voted against the Senate version of the Trump tax cuts is now poised to become the Republican senator who gets the most credit for passing the final version of the bill when it comes to a vote again in the Senate, if the bill passes the Senate this time. The Corker kickback has become the rallying cry of opponents of the Trump tax bill, which now has a provision that neither the House nor the Senate voted on in the previous bills, that is designed to greatly enrich the wealth of already very rich real estate investors like Tennessee Republican Senator Bob Corker and famous real estate investor Donald Trump. President Trump was already very happy with how much richer his own tax legislation was going to make him and his family, even before the Corker kickback was inserted in the bill. But it could be that Donald Trump and Donald Trump's accountant always knew that this extra favorable treatment for real estate investors and developers would be quietly inserted in the bill at the last minute, instead of when everyone was watching in the House Ways and Means Committee markup and in the Senate Finance Committee markup and on the Senate floor. As we reported last week, Senator Corker, who opposed the Senate bill because it would increase the deficit by $1.5 trillion, decided to change his mind on Friday and support the final version of the bill, even though that bill would still increase the deficit by $1.5 trillion. When David Sirota first reported this weekend on how the new version of the bill benefits Bob Corker, Senator Corker's defense was he couldn't possibly have been influenced by the new provision that enriches him so much because he had not read the bill. That's right. The senator's defense for changing his mind on a bill that he opposed was, "I haven't read the bill." That was his defense. Senator Corker went further than that and claimed that he couldn't understand it even if he read it. I don't really know what the provision does, to be honest. I would need an accountant to explain it. And in my experience working in the Senate on tax legislation, that's an honest answer for most senators. They cannot explain a single sentence of tax legislation, and still they vote for it. But the truth is, they often do actually use their own accountants to explain tax legislation to them, and nothing prevented Bob Corker from doing that this weekend, from calling up his accountant and having his accountant explain to him just how many millions he might reap from this new tax provision. When David Sirota explained the tax provision to Bob Corker over the phone, Senator Corker said, quote, "It sounds totally unnecessary and borderline ridiculous." But still, as of tonight, Senator Corker plans to vote for the tax cuts, and his defense of voting for the provision that benefits him and that he claims he did not know about until reporters asked him about it is that he had nothing to do with putting that provision in the bill. Well, he had nothing to do with a lot of other bad things in the bill that he's voting for. He had nothing to do with the bill increasing the deficit by $1.5 trillion. That's like someone keeping money dropped in your lap by fleeing bank robbers and keeping it because you had nothing to do with robbing the bank. You know where this money came from. Bob Corker now knows that there is a provision in the tax bill that is, quote, his words, unnecessary and borderline ridiculous, and it benefits him enormously. And that has given him no pause, not 1 second's pause. He is still voting for the bill. His conscience is completely untroubled by that. And this is the time when a senator should reach into what's left of his decency and take to the Senate floor and announce that now that he has discovered what is actually in the bill, that he had not even read when he declared his support for the bill, he can no longer support the bill because it contains a provision specifically designed to enrich him and to enrich the President of the United States. It is a provision that is unnecessary and borderline ridiculous. That's the speech Bob Corker is supposed to make right now. This is not business as usual in the Senate. Make no mistake about that. We have never seen tax legislation written like this before. I worked in the Senate writing tax legislation. This is the dirtiest bill I have ever seen. And the question tonight is, are there two Republican senators who have the decency to stop this corrupted legislation? And is Bob Corker one of those senators? If Bob Corker votes for the Corker kickback, his entire Senate career will be remembered for nothing else. Joining us now is Ron Klain, former Chief of Staff to Vice Presidents Joe Biden and Al Gore, and a former senior aide to President Obama. Also with us, Austin Goolsbee, an economics professor at the University of Chicago and a former chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors for President Obama. And Ron, I just want to go to your Senate experience from your time working in the Senate. We know things get slipped into conference reports. They get slipped in at the last minute. Provisions like this, obscure provisions, especially in tax legislation. What we have not seen before is a provision slipped into a tax bill in the conference committee that very specifically enriches the President of the United States, his family, his descendants, and enriches the one senator who's changing his mind to vote for the bill.
Yeah, it is unprecedented as far as I know, Lawrence. And, you know, I guess on game shows they have parting gifts. And this is the parting gift for Senator Corker. He's going to leave with the Corker kickback, millions of dollars in unearned tax breaks. And we know that one of the other beneficiaries, as you mentioned, is President Trump. You know, President Trump, we don't know how much it benefits him because, of course, he hasn't released his tax returns. But 1 year of his tax returns did come out during the campaign, 2005. And that year he had $109 million of this pass-through income that will get special tax treatment. So it's a big boost for President Trump and his bank account, a big boost for Senator Corker, and a complete unjustified giveaway.
Austin Goolsbee, your reaction to where this legislation stands tonight?
Well, it feels like they've got the Republicans on board that they're going to vote for it. But, I guess I would caution you, this provision is outrageous that we're describing. But it's just one little thing. That's just one provision. And this is like, if you open your cupboards to take out a box of cereal and you see a rat, the thing is, rats don't travel in ones. And even if they change that provision, this thing is full of rats or stinking Easter eggs or whatever you want to call it, the president promised that they were going to end the carried interest loophole for hedge fund managers. Well, turns out that was not true. They didn't end it. It turns out for the middle class, more than 50% of America, by the time they phase in the full bill, will be facing higher taxes than they do today. There are $20 million exemptions for people with estates of $20 million and above. They cut the tax rate. They created a new bracket for millionaires to reduce their tax rate. There's just one thing after another. So if just that one provision were the only thing there, I feel like they could just remove that provision. But this thing is riddled with those.
Ron Klain, in legislation in the past, we've never really been discussing how does it benefit an individual? How does it benefit the president? And one reason for that is we have not had presidents who own and operate businesses, especially big real estate businesses. And how does it benefit individual senators? When we have seen changes made in legislation for a particular senator, what they were doing was changing the impact on that senator's state. They were literally changing the impact on Nebraska, not on the individual senator representing Nebraska. This is what I'm talking about as being something we haven't seen before.
That's right, Lawrence. I mean, look, I think if someone's out there watching your program tonight and they're not sure if this bill benefits them or not, they should take out their smartphone and see if one of the last 10 numbers they called was a powerful Washington lobbyist. If it was, then this bill probably works for you. And if it wasn't, then this bill is going to raise your taxes. Now, Senator Corker, he's better than a powerful Washington lobbyist. He's the key vote on the tax bill. And miraculously, as if by immaculate conception, a provision gets inserted that was neither in the House bill nor in the Senate bill, that pops up at the last minute and that pads Senator Corker's bank account and pads President Trump's bank account. That is just an outrage of the first order.
And Austin, I think you're very familiar with the economic illiteracy of members of Congress, having had to try to persuade them about certain economic issues. But one thing I've always noticed when a big tax legislation is moving that affects any of the interests of senators this way, they're very aware of how that affects them. And what I've seen up close more than once are senators actually voting to increase taxes on themselves, knowing full well that they were doing that and not asking for any special carve-outs and favors in doing that?
Yeah, you wish that our leaders were mostly concerned with the fate of the country and what would be best for the nation. And if that were the argument that we were having, at least I would understand. You know, they believe that this is going to be better for the country, and we believe that the corporations will not pass the massive savings that they get on to workers in the form of $4,000 more wages. We could have a debate about facts or about economics. It doesn't feel like that's what's happening here. And I don't think that it's a coincidence. I think this comes from the top. You know, we've got a White House in which they don't fill out their conflict of interest forms. They constantly correct it. Oh, did I forget that I had $50 million of that type of asset? We've got what seem to be pretty serious accusations of violating the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, violating conflicts of interest. And that culture permeates from the top. And I think you're seeing that in Congress now.
Austin Goolsbee and Ron Klain, thank you both for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.